Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Divided Films, the podcast where we talk about movies that audiences and critics do not agree on. My name is JJ, and with me is my co-host, Keith. Welcome back,
Keith.
Hello. It's great to get back into it again after having a little winter break from recording, but we're excited to get back into it again.
I'm happy to be back.
We had a good holiday break. Some a really busy couple of months, but now as spring approaches, it is time for new life back into the podcast with more episodes and some new ideas that will be coming your way. So look out for that. But for now, we're starting off our new season with the MCU movie Eternals, directed by Chloe Zhao and starring an ensemble cast. This movie falls into the category of having a negative score with critics and a positive score with audiences. So on Rotten Tomatoes, 48% of critics approved, but 78% of audiences approved, so 30% difference there. The critics' consensus on Eternals: an ambitious superhero epic that soars as often as it strains, Eternals takes the MCU in intriguing and occasionally confounding new directions. Now, this is actually the first movie we're talking about that also has an audience consensus on Rotten Tomatoes, because they had introduced that just a couple of years ago. So the audience consensus on Eternals, it's a different kind of Marvel movie, but Eternals still contains all the action, humor, and heart that fans are looking for. So that remains to be seen based on our opinion. So that's kind of interesting, getting the two different consensus, whatever. Getting the two of them
Consensium.
Whatever it is, we'll look it up in the dictionary later. But yeah, so this was a Marvel movie that I wasn't super pumped to see. I don't think really I've been as excited to see a Marvel movie personally since Endgame. Just because, that was the climax to many years in the making. And, ever since then, it's been an interesting few years for this franchise and this studio. And I feel like this movie, we'll see if it's maybe more enigmatic of this post-Avengers phase in terms of, what direction are we going in? Is there a clear direction of where we're going? Because personally, I'm not sure. And I have an idea of certain elements that are to come in the MCU based on other properties like Spider-Man and Loki and such. But based on this, if this is something that we're going to continue with these Eternal characters, I'm not that excited about where this franchise and this empire of comic book movies is heading. But what about you, Keith? You saw this before me, and I think we're maybe on the same page here.
I'm a big MCU fan, so this one for me was interesting. And we're now like a couple months out. With the benefit of hindsight, I think I can definitively say, and as a big MCU fan, I don't have to go along with everything that they do, but I always think you say it best, JJ. This movie is boring. It's not a bad or awful movie. I actually think there are some things to like about this movie. However, the characters and characterizations and the length and I remember someone was praising the themes. I even think that's muddled. It all comes down to the script. And this script was messy, convoluted, and boring.
Yeah, for me, it starts with the characters. I feel like, I don't know if this is on the actors or the directors, but there's not really much personality here with these Eternal characters. And so, if I don't like the characters or care about the characters or have anything to hang on to, of course I'm not going to be invested. Because, right, I feel like the heart of any comic book movie is the main character, but also, that's like the heart. We love Peter Parker. We love following Tony Stark and, all these Avengers characters. I don't really care about these Eternals. And I feel like any sort of issues they were having were either, kind of annoying me, or again, just uninteresting. Like the whole thing with Sprite, the Sprite character who basically is willing to destroy the planet just because she's in love with the Icarus character. I found that to be so uncompelling. I'm like, really? Like, you're that unemotionally intelligent that you're going to betray everyone just for one guy because you love him? I didn't really buy that, for example. It just seemed to me that there were just, what the characters were experiencing or going through in their minds, I found to be totally unrelatable and not compelling.
Well, it's kind of look. I'm not a Hollywood screenwriter or a novelist. I do like to write, but it is what it is. I don't. It's unrelatable because you can't relate to a god. Like you're never really supposed to make a god your main character.
Yeah, but you know what? Wonder Woman is a god, and I know that's like a whole different franchise, but Wonder Woman is compelling, and there's at least some things to hang on to with the emotions she experiences, even though she is a god. Superman is a god. There are lots of superheroes that are godlike that we can have something to hang on to. Thor is literally a god.
Okay, to answer both Thor and Wonder Woman are both fish out of water stories, and they have Natalie Portman and Chris Pine to rest off of. I think people kind of like the first Thor movie. It's serviceable, and the chemistry between Chris Pine and the story, the writing, the moral dilemmas that Diana goes through, but you never like all these. Why was Kit Harington in this movie?
To build up the next movie, which is apparently going to be Blade, because now there's going to be vampires. Like, I can't take it anymore. There's just too many things going on. But that goes back to a gripe I had with Captain Marvel, which is a focus or a forced plot element just for the sake of franchise building. I really don't care for that. It's really obvious and transparent, and it takes away from the movie you're in. Like, let's not worry about the next movie, the next three movies. Let's worry about the movie we're in now. And if you sell me on that, then at the end, I'll be excited for what's to come. But as it was, I had a sense that he had a purpose in something more than what was in this movie itself. Like, okay, like, he's here for a reason. He's not playing any part really in this plot, so he must be something to tie in to a future movie. And my prediction was right because I'm smart and I know everything.
He should have been the main character. This movie is about the theme is about love. Like, as I watch this, and God, this movie's 2.5 hours long. I had to pause it sometimes just to like get a mental break and play Wordle or something. Like, that's where I was with this movie. Like,
way to date us.
I'm hooked on it. But yeah, no, that's where I could buy Sprite if that was written better, but she should have been the villain. That would have been that would have been. I could have believed her motivations beyond just loving Icarus. Of just like, why did Arishem make me you could have been wrestling with so many different ideas of gods. Like, they're all based on Roman and Greek gods. Icarus, Athena,
Or other kind,
Gilgamesh, who, why even have him in the movie? He's gonna be like, there were so many characters too. Like, as you watch this movie, I would like to believe everyone is just picturing what they would do and what they wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are so many characters, and the way they help differentiate the characters is by color coding them, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. They were like Power Rangers. It's like, okay, like, our main characters, you have Cersei, who's green, and Icarus is blue, and all this, and I'm like, that's so childish in a way. Like, why would a celestial bother to assign them colors and like for any reason? Like, I didn't really for some reason that kept bothering me throughout the movie. I'm like, why are we now? Because that is something you'd see like in a children's cartoon, not necessarily something you should be seeing at this point, like 20 plus movies into this epic comic book universe.
I kept doing research because there are way bigger Marvel fans than I am. Like, the Eternals never showed up in anything. So when I was doing research, not only about the movie but about the characters in general, this was like Jack Kirby wanted to get out. He wanted to do something other than Marvel, but because he was working under Marvel, Marvel's like, no, it's going to be about like they're going to be in the Marvel universe. He wanted to do a story about gods, and Marvel back then was like, no, you can, but it's in the Marvel universe. And so
It has to be on Earth.
it
Why not? Like, Guardians of the Galaxy is so much fun and a fresh breath of air for when it takes place within the franchise, because it's somewhere totally different and takes us into a whole nother part of this universe. Why couldn't these Eternals be taking place somewhere totally, like, why do we have to be back on Earth? Why? That is so limiting and so unsatisfying as someone who we keep getting tastes of different parts of the universe. Why do we have to keep coming back to Earth, especially when you have characters that are supposed to be these infinite cosmic entities?
Yeah, and this movie is visually Chloe Zhao knows how to direct. This movie is visually stunning. Like the parts where anytime Arishem they're talking to each other, and I know it's full on exposition scene, but it looked beautiful.
Sure. I mean, there's some like visual.
You could have done that in space.
Moments.
Though. You could have had like. That's what I'm saying. Like,
oh, sure.
The cosmic Marvel is beautiful looking, and that's a lot of like. This movie made me appreciate James Gunn and what he brought to the MCU, just because like the Guardians was relatively unknown to an audience, and people like I'm playing the video game right now, and it's people know all these characters. My mom knows who Groot is. Like that's where we're at. But you kind of, it's not that you want the Guardians humor in an Eternals movie, but I kept saying not even Kumail Nanjiani and Brian Tyree Henry, who are the comedic actors, they couldn't even bring a lot of humor to this movie.
I felt like he was basically doing what we expect him to do in this movie, right? He's kind of playing off of kind of roles we've seen him do previously, like in Silicon Valley. He's like kind of this cocky guy, and he kind of goes on these rants, and so he's doing his thing. And that's another thing I get a little annoyed with, is when movies try to lean on a comedic actor to just do their shtick without really seeing how it plays in or giving them anything interesting to say or do. Just do your thing that everyone knows you're funny for. Like that's,
yeah.
How does that work into this plot? It was just a distraction, really.
My friends from college are here. Sure. Oh, boss! Perfect timing. Welcome to the set of Shandar Dastane Icarus. I'm playing you. You like the costume?
We need to talk.
Tell the director I have some notes for him.
We need to talk to you in private.
Oh, Karan, he's worked with me for 50 years. I trust him completely. Actually, when we first met, he thought I was a vampire, and he tried to stake me through the heart.
I've apologized so many times.
Not quite enough times. Very close, though. I'll let you know.
And I felt bad for him, too. I think everyone, the whole world was so impressed with his workout when and we only got to see his arms.
Right? Did we even really get to see that? It didn't matter.
No, we just see his arms in the Bollywood scene, and
right.
I'll give the movie some. I appreciated his decision. God, even the movie, the parts. It's how I kind of felt about The Last Jedi. What it was trying to do in so many ways was very interesting, but like a gymnast in the air, they're doing all these amazing stunts, and then when they land, they break their foot. Like, I think Kumail going, I love the humans, but I'm also kind of loyal to the Arishem. I'm gonna not fight any of you. But I'm
gonna be Switzerland.
Yeah, he leaves, and then he comes back at the end to walk Cersei to her car, or Icarus,
without any reason as to why he decided to come around and fight on the Cersei side of things.
Icarus killing himself. Just like goodbye forever. I'm into I had to confirm. I'm like, is he dead? Yeah, he flew into the sun. Icarus flew too close into the sun. I laughed.
Poor Richard Madden. Can he survive anything? Could he ever have any character that lasts in a franchise? But I mean, with the Icarus character, I guess because it's his name, right? He flew too close to the sun, and
it was
that
Poochie.
is the
He's
fate
like,
of
I
his
have
character.
to go back to my home planet. They need me. Then he just I'm like, I kept saying, is he dead? But the way it was executed was comedic.
Yeah, it was silly. It was supposed to be serious, but it came off as silly. Then you mentioned Brian Tyree Henry as Phastos, and okay, we get our first gay Marvel hero, right? I feel like this movie's kind of patting itself on the back for that. I'm like, okay, like that's nice and all, but I really don't care. Again, like it was, they introduced this character kind of halfway through the movie, right? Or like you see him in the beginning, but you get back to him halfway through the movie, and they set up this whole and they make such a big deal about it, and it's almost as if this movie is like, okay, we finally did it. We finally have a gay Marvel character. Here it is. Check that off our list, so you can stop complaining about it.
I mean, that's what I felt about, like, we have a Black Widow movie. Will you stop saying get us a Black Widow movie already? But with that character, who I actually paused, he doesn't come into the movie until about like an hour and a half. Like it's amazing. But that character had so, like, with one of the themes of like, what is it like to be a living god who you're not supposed to interfere, but he helped invent Hiroshima, like the atomic bomb, and you get a nice little, unique little flashback, and then that's it. Nothing ever happens again. You have to go create the Unimind. We have to rely on his humor to. Like,
there's too many things going on.
He's very good at being. Quietly sassy. I think that's always his humor. And it just, like, the characterization stops at like one sentence.
There's interesting ideas about the characters, like this with Fastos, but there's not enough time to really explore any of these ideas in an in-depth way. If maybe they made it into a TV show, so I'm saying is then you would be able to focus more on these ideas, because these characters have supposedly been on Earth for all of human history. And that's a lot you could explore. There's a lot of history that you can show them witnessing or maybe having played a part of, or basically I'm getting a sense that the legends of Icarus and Gilgamesh, blah, 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 is from them. That's how we got these legends, is because, I thought that was the idea at least, and that wasn't really maybe what wound up happening. But if, again, you maybe see how they play a part in history, inadvertently at least, that would be interesting. But we don't have enough time in this movie to do that, even though it's 2.5 hours.
Wonder if, like, Kevin Feige and the other Marvel people do think like they should have gone the TV route with this, because they were I understand why they wanted to make this into a movie, because there's a quote that does not live up well, that like they thought that they were banking on this to be Best Picture. They wanted this to follow.
What?
Like there's a quote from, like, they are, and you could see essence of like more, like it is a different kind of Marvel movie. It almost feels like, and to quote a movie critic, it feels like a DC movie, but it does fall back into a lot of its Marvel, like, stuff we love about Marvel.
Well, again, the humor, or the attempt of humor, is kind of similar kind of beats and cadences, the way they deliver certain jokes and punchlines. But then I can see the DC-ness of it all, especially with the godlike aspect to it, and how it's a lot of morals and philosophies and contemplating and somberness. Frankly, I feel like this movie, maybe it's from the director bringing this into the movie, but there's a bit of somberness in this movie that I felt like was too heavy-handed.
It's too heavy-handed, but then again, it's like, I don't even know how to describe the hand. It's like missing a couple fingers. Like, it's just, there's not much there. It's like eating a piece of bread and you're realizing there's nothing in there. And
it's like eating a blueberry muffin, but there's no blueberries.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm trying to find. It's so, like, the themes of it are just, like, if you want to make this like Dr. Zhivago, if you want to make this an epic love story, I didn't get that. And the theme, there's a lot, like, the theme of it should have been like focused more on Cersei, and hey, if you want to build up Black Knight, I don't know the audience, I don't know Black Knight that well. Now's a good time to build up Black Knight, and just kind of, it might be Game of Thronesy, but not only her name is Cersei, but you got Jon Snow and
Kit Harington.
You got Jon Snow and Richard Madden saying "I love you, Cersei," which is jarring. But you can kind of deal with themes of that, and you can also add in some Sprite there. You could deal with Fastos. You could deal Makari and Droog. Part of me wanted to cut them out, but Makari is a very fascinating character, and they just like, you know, in terms of getting back the gang back together, they definitely had to cut for time. Let's just throw her on the van. And because
She's here now.
is the one character, nothing against the actor, but cut him. He is not, like, I get why they had him. He is the villain. He's the villain. He in the comics, and they did a switcheroo.
Oh, yeah, because I had a sense that he was maybe the darkest one in terms of at least his mood. I mean, his color is black, and
they wanted to trick you.
The actor was definitely giving off the most kind of mysterious way about him. I mean, he was the one character I couldn't really make heads or tails of. Like, is he on board? Does he want to save? Does he not care? Is he indifferent? Like, what? Like, I couldn't really understand how this character was feeling at any time in the movie. And I don't know how intentional that was, but yeah, I agree. Maybe introduce him later on, you know, like maybe you have at least Eternals in the beginning, you show the backstory, but maybe you're not able to get the whole gang together. Maybe just some of the gang back together, and you have this movie. And if you want to do more Eternals, then you bring others in at some point. I don't know.
But yeah, and you got like, I realized it on this watch around that what he is doing like is completely unethical, and no one, not even the human cameraman calls him out. He is like forcing people to live with him in the woods because he doesn't want to live human. Like he is
enslaved a whole village of people by taking over their minds, because the moment that they're free of his control, they're like, get out of here, we gotta go. So is he really punished for his actions for doing this? No. They don't. The Eternal characters, the other Eternals, don't really seem to care that he's doing that to all these poor people. It's like, all right, just cut it out and join us. All right, like just please stop controlling these people's minds so you can help us save the world. It's like no big deal.
He has a relationship with Makari, which is fine, but Makari, and I think it's, you know, I'm all 100% for representation. I think a character like Makari really works, but I hope if I were to ask anybody, like, describe to me Makari, they're going to say, oh, that's the deaf one. Like, I didn't get anything more than that. Like, she's eating snacks. She can run really fast, which I actually kind of like the graphics on that. But this movie has 10 plus, and I'm counting like 10 major characters on that poster. And then you got a deviant general. You got Kit Harington. You got Kumail Nanjiani's driver, who I liked adding a human element to that. I wanted him to call out, like, you're all not good people.
Our universe is a constant exchange of energy, an infinite cycle of creation and destruction. Celestials use energy gathered from host planets to create suns, generating gravity, heat, and light for new galaxies to form. Without us, our universe will fall into darkness. All life will die.
Yeah, you know, the deviant thing, I mean, I guess that's the whole reason these Eternals are on Earth in the first
They
place.
didn't need that guy.
Is just to fight deviants. That's the only reason they're there, is to fight these monsters and to stop them from interfering in human progress, which is such like a weak thing to me. Like, that's the only reason why you're there, is to fight these monsters. That's not very interesting. And they're not supposed to interfere, which is their lazy explanation as to why they didn't get involved in the whole Infinity War saga. Although, like, I don't know, like, were any of them blipped out of existence? They could die. Clearly, they're not.
You could have helped.
Yeah, I could have done something, but you would think that, were they affected by the blip? Were any of them blipped out for that period of time? Because they are alive. They are like life forms, so they would be susceptible to the snap. You know, there was not really any reference to that at all. They really glossed it over. Which, again, if you take place on Earth, you have to rectify that in some way. I mean, I guess you'd have to rectify it just by taking place in the universe in general. But Yeah, they're aware of the Avengers. They're aware of all this. You could really release yourself of all these restrictions that are tying you down by having it take place in some other far off planet.
I think now, like, we have to be really careful with our blockbusters trying to make, like, Endgame was a buildup of 18 movies, and that, so like an end of the world event, that makes sense, of course, both in Infinity War and Endgame. But we, like, you look at, like, people, not every blockbuster needs to be the world is going to end. I think people do appreciate the smaller stories of, like, I don't know. It's amazing if you were to look at all the releases. Like, let's take the movies of MC, because we got the backlog from COVID. We got like 9 releases last year, and everyone loves Spider-Man. That's actually a really damn good movie. People also love Shang-Chi. Like, that's such a fun movie.
I love Spider-Man as well, also being a fanboy of the Tobey Maguire series. Spoiler alert.
Everyone
I'm
knows.
pretty sure the marketing materials knows
Yeah.
that, they tie in the other franchises. But I really like that one a lot. But again, it's a breath of fresh air because it's not the end of the world. It is, you're so invested in this character and everything's at stake for him.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be everything at stake for everybody. And Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings I thought was fun and everything, but personally, the end was such a CGI
That's
overload that I kind of became removed from being invested as a viewer. It kind of took me out a bit. I'm like, holy crap, there's like so much going on, and I don't know how else you would get all that in there except to have all this CGI and everything.
That's fair.
Yeah, it was fine, and I enjoyed like the legend and the backstory and everything like that. But to me, I was, with the exception of Spider-Man, I'm more interested in these TV series that are coming out than the movies, because Loki and WandaVision, those got me back into a franchise that I really thought I was going to move away from. And, I'm more interested in the future based on what those TV series did, right? As opposed to maybe what this like Eternals movie is doing, or even like, Black Widow seemed to be like such an afterthought. It was, again, a fine movie, but it's like too little too late for this character. Yeah, I feel kind of like, as an invested viewer of Marvel, I have one foot in the door and one foot out. And I'm still really not sure if I'm going to go one way or the other yet. That remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, like, you look at that PowerPoint presentation they do every Comic-Con, and it's a lot of it's overwhelming, and you have to say, one thing I did last year was I watched in a build up to No Time to Die. My dad's favorite franchise is James Bond, so I'm like, I will watch all the Bond movies. I've seen a fair amount, but I'm gonna watch them all. And I think it's kind of interesting. Like, that franchise has seen 25 movies, has seen some great highs and some lows. And then
Truly a roller coaster franchise.
it put a lot of Marvel's franchise, which is kind of, James Bond, the Bond franchise is 60 years old. This one is basically like 12.
If you want to say 2008
Yeah.
is the first Iron Man movie, right? So it's been around now. This is 2022.
Yeah.
We're recording this. 14 years.
That's amazing.
14 years, and how many movies are we in now? Like over 20 movies, I'm assuming. Whereas
We're about to hit 25.
right, because like obviously you have many franchises within, so you're able to get multiple movies in every year. It's supposed to James Bond, which is just the one guy, so only every few years.
Speaking of Odin, Thor used to follow me around when he was a little kid. Now he's a famous Avenger and won't return my calls.
So now that Captain Rogers and Iron Man are both gone, who do you think's gonna lead the Avengers?
I could lead them. I figured I'd be good at that.
Yeah, you would.
Ajax didn't even choose you to lead us.
Whoa! Ouch.
Harsh.
I'm gonna let that one slide because, you've always been better that I can fly and you can't.
Oh, so what you can fly. I'm better looking. Everybody knows that.
So, I felt personally very satisfied with the end of Endgame, just emotionally. And, obviously it's kind of like there was so much buildup and going to get us to that point. Obviously, if you're going to start over, basically, with this new phase, it's going to, again, take some time to get the wheel rolling again and to get as excited as you had before, obviously. So you need to be patient again as a viewer. But it seems to me like the future is multiverse for this franchise. It's basically what we're getting as a hint from Loki. Kind of opened the door to that. Spider-Man, and it seems like with the trailer to the next Doctor Strange movie, that's really going to be where this franchise is heading. And so we'll see. We'll see if maybe they also take that as an opportunity to tie in, like, maybe the X-Men franchise and bring in Deadpool, which would be cool. We'll see. I'd be interested to see all of that. But with the characters we're left with in this current Marvel universe, I'm kind of, if the Eternals is like, here's your new cast of characters, I'm kind of like, what else you got?
Well, yeah, it's to just go on like a little bit of a Marvel, like what I love, and they're obviously going to go into the multiverse, and there is a lot to do there. But we're getting a new cast of characters that, like, I think Florence Pugh is great. Yelena, I can't wait to see that character. Kate Bishop, Haley Stein. I was gonna say,
are they going to bring back Florence Pugh into something?
I would say watch Hawkeye, which is an enjoyable romp. I would say I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
I'm behind with Hawkeye and on the Winter Soldier Falcon shows. I need to watch
Hawkeye. I watched like right as Christmas was like going. I waited until it was finished, but it was a nice like Christmas movie. But Kate Bishop's a good character, but I won't say what happens. But once again, Shang-Chi is it's a nice addition. And you could see Shang-Chi interacting with Spider-Man, you could see like I think the new Avengers getting their legs going. And you're right. You're going to need some good writers to really throw in the Eternals, because, they're with the post-credit scene that I feel like was shot the week before the movie. Like, I don't know this character. I had to look it up, and they're going to have to really, like, Harry Styles. No wonder why Thanos was angry. When you have Harry Styles as your brother and you look like a pink thumb. I get it. Harry,
which I was like, that's Thanos' brother? They don't look anything like him.
It's in the comics, and Arrow's, I think Harry Styles is kind of like could work as that, but it's just like, oh, I don't even know if they're going into the multiverse, like, where do these characters, like, when does Kumail Nanjiani pop up and go like, hello, like, everybody,
am I going to be excited
let me explain
when his character appears? Kingo? No, I'm not going to care when he, like, oh, look, now we're bringing these characters. Like, remember how in the old Avengers movies, when characters would show up, we'd be like, yeah, like, we're tying them all in now. I'm not going to really care with these characters.
Well, because, like, and maybe this is the way Jack Kirby and Stan, like, these characters weren't even supposed to be in the Marvel universe anyway, and I really never heard of them. And it's such a shame, because Chloe Zhao is coming off like granted, Nomadland was a very good movie, and also The Writer's a very good movie, and she wanted to direct a Marvel movie. Like, she went to Marvel and said, I want to work on something. So she's coming off best director, best script, best picture at the last Oscars. And so they're trying to ride I remember all the trailers from Academy Award winning Chloe Zhao. And then this script, which, even though the story was by people, and I think Chloe Zhao just kind of like script doctored it, kind of like wanted to put her voice into it. But the story is very hard to get on board with.
No matter what was happening, again, it was hard for me to get interested in from the get-go because of how much I couldn't really get invested in the characters. But yeah, like, it goes in all these crazy directions, especially with that, what do you call it, Deviant General, which didn't go anywhere. Like, they said this guy, is he the main bad guy? No. Does he have any impact on the plot? No.
Oh my god, when he came in and like when they're all fighting Icarus and then he came into the battle, I was like, "Oh my god, dude, read the room. Like we have 80 people on this island. Like we can't fight you now." And then like they're trying to make Athena interesting cuz she has like Alzheimer's, and it's like it's interesting to a point.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie.
It's interesting to a point, and then it just falls flat.
Well, that was also to reveal that these characters are going to be erased, and they've done this over and over again. They're basically like these like robot servants of the Celestial. That's like the big reveal, and they've done this probably a whole bunch of times, and now they want to break the cycle. Sure, I guess, but yeah, it would be more impactful, this whole idea that they're going to be erased, this whole experience from them to move on again. It would be more impactful if we got a closer look at how important their lives are to them on this earth and spend more time with them and see like what is at stake with these relationships that they've built. You know, like Fastos has his family, and then Cersei has his relationship and stuff, but we don't spend enough time with any of that to really care if it gets lost and taken away.
And I don't think we see, this is the part about playing in the Marvel Disney sandbox is like, I don't think a movie Eternals could be a best picture. It could be it just has to maybe lean towards being more like Logan or Blade Runner 2049, where you don't have to worry about a god rising out of the, like, is that stuck there now? Is that going to be mentioned is that going to be turned into a theme park or something? I hope it's
going to be considered like a wonder of the world, or something like, wow, look, it's sticking out of the ocean.
Like,
I'm going to
go off on a little, like, when we lived together, we always said, what's the worst universe to live in? And like, if I lived in the Marvel universe, I would just accept death on a daily basis, especially with this movie, when the god at the end just like makes a collect phone call in front of everyone on Earth. It's just like, hi, I need to pick up like you. It reminded me of the Rick and Morty, like when those heads pop up, like, Ken, like, show me what you got. Like it's just like,
well, at that point, people on Earth in this universe have to be thinking to themselves, what else can we possibly take at this point? We've been through so fucking much, and now this like being is showing up. Like come on, no more. Give us a freaking break.
Like, I lived through New York. I lived through Sokovia. I lived through 5 years or 1 year of a blip, and like this doesn't. I bet people are going like, this is just Tuesday. Like it.
Yeah, now they're just used to it, maybe. I also get a kick out of basically, it turns out it would have been better to be snapped out of existence knowing that you eventually come back, as opposed to living through those 5 hellish years, never knowing if those people are coming back, and society collapsing. That I thought that was like a funny thing to realize. But
to go back to the point, to go back to the point I was making, is like you could clearly see them trying to make this movie maybe a little bit bigger than a comic book, but it's also a Disney movie. That's not a fault per se. Like, I think if you look at Black Panther was able to touch on some issue, like it was able to hit the zeitgeist of the beat of the country in the moment. And my criticisms of Black Panther are probably the same criticisms you have of Shang-Chi. Like, that third act is a little bit CGI. Like, they're all like the rhinoceroses and stuff. But they have some characters that you can latch onto. I thought Michael B. Jordan should have been nominated with
it's excellent. And I mean, I feel like at least the action was done more so in a way that it felt more grounded in reality in Black Panther than it did in Shang-Chi.
There's something that you can latch onto in that. But with this one, I don't know. I feel like if you were to make this a smaller, like some of the shots in that, it looks like a beautiful, like Selma Hayek on her ranch. Give me that. And if I keep thinking, like, if they made this into a TV show, because I kept saying like this could have been the first like mockumentary MCU film. If they like, because you're having a guy with a camera, you're having a guy follow Kumail Nanjiani's drivers following around with a camera. I would have liked to have seen something of that. That would have been an interesting way to view this movie, but they're not going to do that. But if
oh, God forbid they make it into a found footage
in a
movie.
TV show, that would be a great episode. Different
Right,
genre,
something lighter.
different genres to introduce all
Different
these characters.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. They'd be able to explore more in the TV format. I think I'm trying to wrap my brain, because we've been a little harsh on it, and again, the audience did like this movie, and my guess from reading from some of these audience comments is that this movie, it was released in theaters, right, and it maybe just scratches an itch, like you're getting in. It's something familiar again, where you're getting that Marvel cadence. You're having some action. You're having some familiar feelings you did when you went to see previous Marvel movies. So it maybe is fulfilling a need that we weren't able to have for a good year without like these releases in the theater. So maybe there's something of that to speak of. I'm not quite sure, but some people were actually moved by the movie, and it's interesting. Maybe just on the surface level was enough from the way the music's composed, from the sweeping shots, from the visuals. Maybe that is enough to win over some people. Maybe there was enough of them to hang on to with the characters. I'm not quite sure. And a lot of people like ensemble movies for, just it's, I guess, sometimes fun to see all these actors getting together. I'm like spitballing.
No. But once again, I'm not. This isn't a bad movie or an awful movie. So that plays to its.
It's a disappointing movie.
That's what plays to its favor in the fact that, the people that really love. There are people out there that really love Batman vs Superman, and those people got a 4-hour movie out of their love of loving Batman vs Superman. So there are people that if someone were to tell me I really liked Eternals, I'm very curious as to why, where would they put it in their ranking? I could see there being there's more it's not never nudes. There's more than 12, but I could see that there are people that are,
there are dozens of them.
There are people that really kind of latched on to this movie in the same way I could see people latching on to Batman v Superman and what it tried to do. Well,
I do think that this movie has a heart. I think that there's definitely some there's a lot of good intentions with this movie. It's just crowded, right? Like obviously with characters, with plot, too much going on with the story. If they simplified, like we've been saying, then you could have seen more of that heart, and it could have hit home a little better. And obviously we could have gotten a little more invested in the characters. But it's just trying to do too much. It's, maybe you can say it's a bit too ambitious. I'm not quite sure, but if you take back, again, it doesn't have to be an end the world scenario. If it's just what's important to these characters, it could just be what they're about to lose. Maybe you can have something where it was that their time on Earth is coming to an end. Doesn't mean it's because of the destruction of Earth. It's just because whatever reason you can come up with, the Celestial says so. And so, they're maybe trying to fight back at him so they can stay. I don't know, something that it's more of their story.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think it's just like something as like we are along for this ride of the MCU, and we always want to see where how this universe can get bigger. Like in Loki, in the time.
But does it need to get bigger?
Exactly. Like not every movie needs to, Guardians of the Galaxy expanded it in so many ways, and I feel like it that was the last thing it focused, or not the last thing, but like them going to nowhere served the plot point. Like it didn't, and it's such a cool place, but I'm more invested in the characters as opposed to
they gave themselves in Guardians creative freedom because it's taking place in a part of this universe we've never been to before and even thought there could be. And so, they could go to all these amazing places and again, have the freedom to have the story be whatever they want. They can go wherever they want to go. It was just smart to do it that way. And looking back, a really smart franchise to build up. Now, that being said, we are going to get a Guardians 3,
Yeah.
which, from what I understand, will be the last of what we'll see with this lineup of Guardians, which is interesting because I am aware that there are other lineups of Guardians of the Galaxy. If they want to eventually bring in those characters, I don't know. But I've been looking forward to Guardians 3. We were supposed to get that initially back in 2020, and that was delayed for a multitude of reasons. But we're finally going to get it, and I'd be very excited to see that one.
I guess what I'm trying to say, and like with Eternals, is I don't. We didn't need to know right away that, like, I think, like, with Guardians, we expanded the outer reaches of space. I don't think we needed, like, the biblical, how the earth and all this was started. Like, that's how we're expanding the MCU, how the MCU has started. And it's not that I'm not interested in it. I actually find, like, when you're tackling like Celestials, that could be it's cool. They're in the comics. You have to be fun to bring them in, but maybe establish these characters first and then bring them in for the sequel, or like hints of the Celestials, like,
yeah. Because I mean, we had a Celestial in the second Guardians movie, and
small G.
Yeah, with these, yeah. Yeah, minor one, but you're right. It's it's kind of like how Black Panther appeared in Civil War before he had his own movie, etc. Like let's kind of get a sneak peek of some of these characters, and I mean, I guess that's the idea of what they're doing with this Black Knight character, having him appear in this, but it has to be a little less obvious because at least Black Panther served a purpose in Civil War. He had something to do.
He had an arc.
He was like an integral part of the story.
Yeah.
Whereas Kit Harington really is just kind of there with
no. I'll
really
pay someone to just, like, tell me why he was important, and don't not say to set up a character that you just heard of when I heard of him. But it's just like, I don't know. It's disappointing, and I say that as a big MCU fan. And when people go like, oh, like, I'm not going to reevaluate my relationship with the MCU because like, oh, I liked Thor: The Dark World, and that's because I've seen the Thor: The Dark World in MCU marathons. Granted, I know why people don't like it, but there's stuff that I like about it. But this one is just, I'm not itching to go. Like, I'm not itching to go back to this right away. And when I was watching it on this run,
No.
I had to pause it, and I'm just like, oh my God. Like I started this at like 8. Like, why? How is it only like 11?
Yeah, it's. I agree. It's maybe not really one of the more rewatchable Marvel movies because most of them are very rewatchable. It's just, it's a bit frustrating to see how it's again too stuffed. It's frustrating to see how they have lofty ambitions, but they're holding themselves back, it feels, for most of the film.
You have chosen to sacrifice a Celestial for the people of this planet. I will spare them, but your memories will show if they are worthy to live. And I will return for judgment.
So I think we can get into our score for Eternals. So Keith, what would be your percentage score for Eternals?
God, I said like there are some of the lower rankings of Marvel movies for me that I'm like, all right, it's 60, it's passable, and maybe like I still feel that way, but I'm not itching to watch like Iron Man 2 or like that again. But this one I do like. I'm older. I'm much more. I know who I am and what I like, and doing this podcast now for 6 seasons. By the way, I've become at least more attuned to having some eye of criticism. I hate to say it, but it's not a bad movie. But I also gave Batman v Superman. I gave Batman v Superman a 54. there's some stuff to enjoy in that movie. I'm going to give it a 53. My first...
You would take Batman v Superman over this by 1%.
Yeah, there's some fun to be had in that, but I do think this is what I would say my first rotten Marvel movie. But it's not... I'm curious to see what... Like, these characters are going to be brought back. I'm curious to see what's done with them. I'll say that.
Right. Ultimately, I think it's a shame because, it's nice to see a more diverse cast of characters in a Marvel movie. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great that now there's visibility for a gay character, and you have like a very, like you have like the deaf character, you have all these different kinds of heroes that you don't normally see. But it'd be nice if they each had their own moment instead of all sharing a moment at once, because then that's going back to doing too much.
Yes.
So, to me, again, it's a disappointing movie, and crazy that it's not really rewatchable because I feel like Marvel prides itself on that. I'd give it like a down the line 50. I appreciate the ambition, I appreciate what the movie's trying to do, but ultimately, it all starts with the script.
Very much so.
And I think they should have maybe retooled what they thought we would care about as audience members when it comes to this whole new set of characters. We don't know any of them. We have to introduce 10 people. Like, what's important to us? What's worked before? And how are you going to translate that to this? It seems like they just kind of missed the mark over what was working for them before. So, it seems like we're in the lower 50s, Keith. What's our official average?
51.5.
All right. Well, we're a little higher than the critics. But much lower than the audiences. So I officially decree that on Eternals, we are siding with the critics. We'll see the future. Let's see what the future holds for Marvel. How long we'll be. I feel like, Keith, you're going to be there till the very bitter end, and you might be one of the few. We'll see.
I think going into the TV route has been very interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see them introduce new characters and this isn't like promotional stuff, but She-Hulk and Moon Knight, because you could see maybe they could have made an Eternals TV show, but I think that quote when they said they wanted to make it this is best picture material, that aged like milk.
Marvel movies
that aged like milk.
See, like that or. That expired. I agree. That's Marvel movies. Not to say that they can't be prestigious, but when you go, usually anytime you go into a movie thinking this is going to win an Oscar, that's usually a recipe for
just
disaster.
Be fun.
You should make a movie. Just make a good movie. You shouldn't worry about if it's going to win awards. Make it good first, and then worry about the awards later.
Yeah.
So, thanks to Marvel for all these great movies.
No, we love you, Kevin. We love the whole we say this as fans. I think we can't I think if we were on board with everything, that would make us sycophants.
Right. It's like that's the thing. I was critical with Captain Marvel because I expect more. The bar has been raised to a very high level, and then apparently the Venom franchise might be tied into this somehow, as we saw from one post-credit scene that I did not really even understand. But maybe we'll get into
Spider-Man
that.
Is the divorced kid of the MCU, because you got Sony making their own Spider-Man movies. They just announced Dakota Johnson as Madam Web. I'm like, that's gonna be a movie. Weird. An old woman in a chair. So he's kind of owned between Disney and Sony. It's so bizarre.
He's got to go to family court, and it's very traumatizing. All right, well, so far so good. Starting off this new batch of episodes, Keith. We'll get into maybe more movies that we do enjoy, but it's always a pleasure going over these divided films with you, and can't wait to get into the next one.
All right.